Jack Carter sat alone in the control room of mining station K-47. Orbiting the dark side of Jupiter's moon, Callisto, the station was silent, cold, and mostly forgotten by Earth Command. Jack had been there for 6 months, repairing old machines, checking oxygen levels, drinking way too much recycled coffee. He didn't mind the silence, but sometimes the silence felt like it was watching him. Then, one day, something strange happened. An alert blinked on the Consola ship was approaching. Jack frowned, zooming in on the screen. The ship wasn't one of Earth's, nor one of the usual cargo drones. It was sleek, silver, and moved like it was swimming through space. No ID, no signal, no warning. Jack stood up, his hand hovering over the emergency lock. But the ship didn't fire, didn't broadcast a threat. It simply docked. Smooth and quiet. Then the airlock hissed open. Out stepped a figure. A woman, at least she looked like one. Tall, graceful, glowing slightly with a strange energy. Her skin was smooth like metal, but warm in color. Her eyes sparkled with thousands of tiny lights, like distant stars, and her legs, long and elegant, shimmered as she walked. Jack stared, forgetting to speak, forgetting to breathe. She walked closer, stopping a few feet from him. Her expression was calm, curious, unreadable. He finally found his voice. "Your legs are beautiful," he said, half joking, half stoned. She tilted her head, then smiled softly. "I have something prettier," she said, her voice like music and wind. "Want to see?" Jack blinked, unsure if she was flirting or threatening. Before he could answer, the lights in the station flickered. Then the red emergency alarm lit up. Intrusion detected. The system warned. Jack turned to the control panel, fingers moving fast. "Something's trying to override the mainframe," he said. He looked at the alien woman, but she was calm. Still watching him. "They're coming," she said quietly. Jack's heart raced. "Who's they?" he asked. Instead of answering, she walked past him and pressed her hand against the wall. The metal surface melted like water, revealing a hidden passage. Jack had lived on this station for months. He had never seen that door. "Come with me," she said. "There's no time." Jack hesitated, but then the station shook slightly. Something had just landed. Or worse, broken in. He followed her down the hidden hallway, past walls glowing with symbols he couldn't read. Everything smelled clean, electric, and old. They entered a room unlike anything Jack had ever seen. It was round, with floating crystals, and a soft humming in the air. At the center was a glowing device, shaped like a sphere, pulsing with light. "What is this?" Jack asked, staring. She looked at him with a strange kindness. "This is the reason I came," she said. "Because of you, me?" He laughed nervously. "I just fix broken pipes and shout at coffee machines." She stepped closer. "You're more than that, Jack Carter." Before he could ask more, the station shook again. Harder, dust fell from the ceiling. A loud, grinding sound echoed from above. Something was crawling through the vents. Jack's instincts screamed at him to run, to fight, to panic. But the alien woman took his hand. Gently, her skin was warm, soft, and glowing now. "I asked if you wanted to see," she said, looking into his eyes. "If you do, I can protect you, but only if you trust me." Jack looked at the door, then back at her. He didn't understand her, or what was happening, but deep inside, he felt something strange, something pull at him like a memory he never knew he had. "Okay," he said. "Show me." She smiled again. "Come." Beautiful, and somehow sad. Then the sphere in the center of the room lit up brighter, floating into the air from the hallway behind them. A screech echoed, cold, sharp, and inhuman. Something was here, and it wasn't friendly. The woman raised her hand, and the sphere opened like a flower made of light. Inside it, something shimmered, alive, ancient, and not of this world. Jack stared, his breath caught. The woman whispered, "This is the prettiest part," and everything turned white. Jack opened his eyes, and the room was no longer the same. Everything had changed. The lights were soft and blue, and the air felt thicker, like breathing underwater. He was standing, but didn't remember how he got up. Viraya stood across from him, glowing brighter than before. Her form shimmered like a reflection on rippling water. The sphere in the center of the room floated silently above the ground. It pulsed with a strange rhythm, like a heartbeat, but ancient and steady. Jack tried to speak, but no sound came out. He touched his throat, and Viraya nodded slowly, as if she understood his question without hearing it. "Your voice will return soon," she said gently. "This space is different from your world's rules." Jack pointed at the sphere, then at her, then shrugged with a puzzled look. Viraya stepped closer, her hands open and peaceful. "You asked to see something prettier," she whispered, "but beauty is not always what the eyes can hold." She extended her hand and touched the side of the sphere. Suddenly, the entire room bloomed with moving images, galaxies being born, stars dying and reforming. Strange planets with impossible colors, alien cities floating in gas clouds, giant machines walking across deserts, a planet that looked like Earth but covered in ice jacks. Eyes widened in awe. His mind struggled to keep up with the visions. "These are the memories of my people," Vera said. "We are not just visitors. We are witnesses, watchers of time, keepers of lost truths." Jack stared at her, trying to understand what she truly was. "Why me?" he finally managed to ask, his voice barely a whisper. Viraya's smile faded just a little. "Because you said something no one has said to us in 1,000 years, she replied. "You noticed something small, something human. You admired beauty without needing power. You offered kindness with no purpose." That woke the signal inside me. Jack rubbed his face, trying to make sense of it. "So this was all because of a compliment? Because I said your legs were beautiful?" Vieira nodded and laughed softly. "In your culture, it may sound silly, but in mine, it is rare. We do not reveal our inner selves to anyone who only seeks the surface. Your words were the key, not to me, but to what I carry." Suddenly, a loud thud echoed through the walls. Jack flinched and looked toward the hidden hallway. They had come through. The station shook again, and this time the lights flickered. "Something is breaking in," he said. Viraya didn't move. Her face grew serious and calm. "They are not after you, Jack Carter. They are after this." She pointed at the glowing sphere. "It holds a map, a truth long buried, and you are now part of it." Jack stepped back, unsure. "I didn't sign up for this. I was supposed to fix machines and eat bad noodles, and go home in 6 months. Viara walked toward him slowly, her presence both warm and unreal. "You still can," she said. "But if you walk away now, they will follow you. They will find Earth. They will erase everything." Jack clenched his fists, trying to think. His heart pounded against his chest. Like a hammer from outside came another metal-crushing sound, followed by a strange hiss. Something breathing, something alive, something hunting. Vera moved to the wall and placed her palm on it. Another hidden passage opened, revealing a downward path lit by floating lights. "There is one more place I need to show you," she said. "It holds the reason I came here, and the reason you're not just a human anymore." Jack took one last look at the main room. The glowing sphere still floated quietly, spinning with secrets. He looked at Viraya, and despite everything in him, screaming to run. He nodded. "Let's go." They descended into the new hallway, the walls closing behind them. Far above the hidden chambers, a sharp claw scraped across steel. A shadowy figure moved through the dark like a spider made of smoke. It followed the scent of memory and light. It wanted what Jack had touched, but Jack was no longer just an engineer. He was something else now, and deeper within the station, the truth was waiting to be seen. The tunnel was unlike anything Jack had seen. The walls were not built with human hands. They glowed faintly with blue veins of light that pulsed like they were alive. Every step he took echoed with a hum like the inside of a giant machine breathing. Virea walked ahead of him, silent and confident. Her presence lit the path, but her face stayed unreadable. Jack wanted to speak, but something about the air made him hesitate. Words felt too small for the weight of this moment. They reached a sealed door covered in symbols that shimmered like stars in motion. Virea raised her hand, and the door simply dissolved like sand in the wind. Inside was a vast chamber shaped like a sphere, with no corners and no floor. Platforms floated freely in the air, and gravity bent in strange ways. Jack felt his body shift as he stepped forward, but he never fell. The room accepted him like it had been waiting for years. "This is the core of the station," Vera said, "but not the station your people built. This place was hidden long before Earth found this rock." Jack turned slowly, taking in the impossible size of the chamber. It felt like he was inside a living planet's heart. He pointed at the floating platforms. "Who built this?" he asked. Viera looked at him with eyes full of ancient sorrow. "We did," she said, "and we lost it to silence." Jack stepped onto one of the floating paths, and it carried him upward. Without motion at the top was a pedestal holding a transparent cube of light. It spun slowly, casting shadows that didn't match the room. Viera joined him and touched the cube. The chamber came alive. Images filled the space, spinning around them, maps of galaxies, codes, and languages Jack had never seen. Images of creatures both beautiful and terrifying. A war that seemed endless and old. "We were explorers," she said. "We cataloged life and gave shelter to those without it. But we made a mistake. We shared too much with something that could not understand mercy. It turned our gifts into weapons." Jack watched a vision of stars exploding, entire planets consumed by machines. He felt a chill that had nothing to do with the room's temperature. "What does this have to do with me?" he asked. Viera stepped beside him and touched his chest. Gently, "Your kind is new in the cosmic scale, but you have something rare, something not even we had when we began. Curiosity with compassion, strength without conquest. You complimented a stranger not to gain favor, but because you meant it." That unlocked the chamber and woke the map. Jack stared at the spinning images. He didn't feel strong or special, just tired and confused. "Why me?" he said again. Vera smiled for the first time with warmth. "Because sometimes the universe hides its keys in the quietest pockets, and you were just loud enough to be heard." A sudden, deep sound rolled through the chamber, a vibration that rattled the platforms. Jack looked around as the images began to dim. "What's happening?" he asked. Vera's face turned serious. "They found us. The ones who chased my people across galaxies, the ones who silence voices and steal knowledge. They want the map." Jack's heart pounded. "So we run." "We can't," she said. "If we leave now, they'll follow, and they'll find Earth we hold here." Jack looked at the cube, pulsing brighter now, as if reacting to the danger. "Can we use this thing to fight them?" "No," she said, "but it can give us something more important than weapons. A signal, a warning to others, and maybe a door out." She reached into the light and pulled out a small orb, glowing gold and silver. It pulsed in sync with Jack's heartbeat. "What is that?" he asked. "A beacon," she said. "But it needs your touch to activate. You're the key." Now Jack took the orb in his hands. It felt warm, like holding sunlight. He could hear whispers in the back of his mind, like forgotten dreams. Waking up, he closed his eyes and the orb responded, lighting the entire chamber in a soft, golden glow. The sound of the enemy grew louder outside the door, claws against metal, breath like steam engines. Virea stood beside Jack, ready. "You asked to see something prettier," she said. "Now let's show them what hope looks like." And the chamber began to rise like a giant, eye-opening for the first time in centuries. The chamber was rising like an ancient lift pulled by invisible threads of light. Jack stood at the center, holding the glowing orb as it pulsed like a second heart. Vera stood beside him, silent eyes fixed on the space above. The ceiling slowly unfolded, revealing a dome filled with stars. Not fake stars, but real ones projected in perfect detail, as if the universe itself had bent down to watch. Jack could feel the energy in his fingers spreading up his arms into his chest and into his mind. Memories that weren't his flickered like sparks at the edge of thought. He saw cities made of crystal and oceans that glowed with fireflies the size of planets. He saw beings that spoke through color and danced too. Communicate, he saw Viraya before she was Viraya. She had not always looked like this. Her form was once shifting pure energy, wearing a body only to connect with lesser species to comfort them. Her people had never needed shape until the war that changed everything. Jack gasped and nearly slapped. Dabira steadied his hands. It is sharing with you, she said softly. Because it knows you are awake. Jack met her eyes, and they weren't just eyes now. They were windows into something vast and endless. You're not like anything I've met, he whispered. Viraya stepped back and raised her arms. Then let me show you who I am. Her body shimmered, the skin peeled away like soft light folding inward what stood before. Jack now was not flesh, but a being of radiant threads made of starlight and memory. She was beauty beyond design, beyond rules, beyond reason. Her form kept shifting, wings of mist, arms of flame, a core of pure voice. Jack stared not with fear, but with awe. His heart should have been racing, but it was steady, calm, like it knew this was right. This is the truth beneath my skin, Viraya said, her voice echoing not from her mouth, but from everywhere we take form for. Your sake, to help you understand, but this is what we are when we stop pretending. Jack felt something inside him shift like a wall had cracked. Open, you said. I unlocked something, he said. Is this what I unlocked? Part of it, she answered. You awakened the memory inside the map and inside me. But more than that, you awakened the question we stopped asking long ago. What makes something truly beautiful? The chamber vibrated again, louder this time. The enemy was nearly through. The walls were glowing red like the system was bleeding light. Jack turned to face the entrance. What do they want exactly? He asked. To erase, he said, simply. They are not creators or explorers. They consume potential and silence. Curiosity, they fear beauty because they cannot feel it. They chase us across galaxies to shut our voices. Jack stepped forward, holding the orb tighter. Then they picked the wrong human to silence. Viraya's light brightened in response to his words. The orb began to float, spinning above his hands. It projected a beam straight into the star dome. A symbol appeared in the air above them. A spiral made of 12 golden arcs, glowing bright enough to be seen from orbit. What is that? Jack asked. A call, Vera said to those who still remember. A message in the language of wonder. Jack could feel the chamber answering back, a thrum in the floor and in the air, and inside his lungs. Then the entrance burst open. Black smoke poured in, followed by something tall and jagged and wrong. It looked like a shadow wearing armor made of blades. Its face was a void, and its movement silent. It paused, seeing Viraya's true form and the glowing orb. It screeched, but no sound came, only pressure and pain. Jack stepped in front of Viraya. Without thinking, he raised his hand and the orb responded, shooting out a wave of golden light. The creature staggered, sparks flying from its body. It tried to charge, but another pulse hit it harder. Jack felt no fear, only focus. He didn't know how he was doing this, but it felt like breathing. You are not a warrior, Viraya said behind him. But you are something more dangerous. You are human, and you care. The enemy roared again, but now the chamber itself joined Jack. Every surface pulsed with light. Ancient systems waking from sleep. Symbols turned into shields floating in the air. Jack smiled at the creature. You wanted to see what's prettier than her, he said. Now look around, and the entire room exploded with light. The station was no longer silent. It was alive with light, sound, and something older than technology. Jack stood in the center of the glowing chamber, surrounded by spinning shields and humming energy. Vera's true form floated beside him, her body still a dance of starlight, and thought the creature of shadow writhed on the floor, its armor cracked and leaking black mist like oil in zero gravity. Jack felt the orb float back into his hands, warm like sunlight on skin. The energy had calmed for now, but the danger was far from over. Above the station in orbit, the real threat had arrived. A fleet of black ships hung in the stars, shaped like knives turned downward. They carried no lights, no flags, no signals. Only silence and gravity. Dozens, maybe hundreds of them, spread in formation surrounding the station like vultures around a wounded animal. Vera turned her gaze upward through the dome of stars. They are here, the ones who never speak, the ones who take and never give. They have followed me for a long time, and now they have found you. Jack stared at the projections forming in the air above the chamber. Each ship pulsed with a dark red signal, a code that repeated every few seconds. What are they saying? Jack asked. Virea's voice was quiet. They are not talking to us. They are talking to each other. They are calculating how fast they can burn this station and everything in it. Jack clenched his fists. We can't let that happen. They can't reach Earth. You said this place can warn others, right? Can it defend us too? Vera's light dimmed slightly. The defenses are old and unused. They were built to protect against time, not war, but perhaps you can wake them. Jack nodded. What do I do? She floated toward the center of the room and placed her hands on the sphere. Again, it glowed brighter, forming 3 rings of symbols around it. She pointed to one of them. These are not weapons in your human sense. They are truth beams. They show what is hidden and reveal what is forgotten to beings like the ones above. Truth is poison. Jack didn't fully understand. But he didn't need to. He walked to the sphere and placed his hand over the ring. It burned for a moment, then accepted him. A shockwave of soft golden light burst from the chamber, racing through the station and out into orbit. For a second, everything went still. Then the enemy ships responded. They began to move. Not toward retreat, but toward attack. They fired lines of black energy that bent space around them. The beams struck the station's outer shields, which flickered and held for now. Jack stumbled as the impact shook the floor. Vera looked at him, not with fear, but with urgency. You must go to the control nexus. It is buried deep below. It connects to the core of this station, and through it, you can direct the map's power. You are the first human to be accepted by it. Jack hesitated. Come with me. Vera shook her head. I must hold the energy here. Without someone to channel the light, the beacon will die, and you will be alone. Jack wanted to argue, but he saw the truth in her form. She was flickering now, already straining to stay in this dimension. Promise me something, she said, as the walls around them pulsed faster. Promise me you will not fight because you hate them, but because you love what they wish to destroy. Jack nodded and turned away, running toward the descending lift that had opened behind him. The walls of the tunnel changed as he moved. Symbols lit up with every step, like the station recognized him. Below in the darkness, the nexus awaited. Above the station shook again. Another hit, this time harder. A siren howled through the structure, warning of hull pressure drop. Vera floated alone in the center chamber, glowing brighter than ever. Her voice echoed into Jack's mind even as he dropped lower and lower. You once asked what was prettier than legs. Now you carry it in your heart. The lift opened to a vast black chamber, lit only by a central crystal throne covered in light vines. Jack stepped onto it, and the vines moved gently, wrapping around his arms and legs without pain. The moment his skin touched the crystal, he saw everything: the enemy ships, the code they shared, the memory of the first time they destroyed a world. He saw Earth floating in space, so small, so quiet. And he knew he could not let it end here. With one deep breath, Jack opened the final command, and the truth began to shine like a sunrise, made of voices. The light poured from the crystal throne like a river of memory. Jack sat frozen in the center of it all, eyes wide, hands gripping the edges as his mind filled with 1,000 thoughts that were not his own. He saw galaxies being born with no sound and no violence, only rhythm and light. He saw civilizations rise not with fire and war, but with art and kindness. He saw what the universe used to be before silence took its throne. Every pulse from the crystal was a question. Every answer Jack gave came not from knowledge, but from instinct. He remembered the small things. His mother's voice reading him stories, his dog's tail wagging when he came home, the taste of ice cream on summer days, the sound of rain on a roof. While falling asleep, he remembered being human. And the map responded to that memory. It grew brighter until it was no longer just light, but presence. It became a voice that spoke without sound and touched without form. "You remember," said the voice. "That is enough." Jack opened his eyes, and the throne room was no longer just a room. It was a canvas, and he was painting with memory. He thought of music and heard it. He thought of peace and felt it. He thought of Virea and saw her. Floating above the chamber, a projection of her still form hovered, surrounded by strands of soft energy. She was fading, but smiling. The enemy fleet began to change. From the map's projection, Jack saw their ships twisting, turning, flashing, as if in pain. Their silence was breaking. The truth beams had reached them, and what they saw was not weapon or code. It was love, connection, beauty, and they could not stand against it. Some ships began to retreat, drifting back into dark space like shadows crawling from the sun. Others tried to fire again, but their energy beams curved and vanished into golden clouds. One by one, their lights dimmed, their silence shattered, and their hate lost direction. Back in the throne, Jack stood, the vines unwrapped, and let him go. The crystal beneath his feet glowed softly now, like it was resting. He looked up, and the chamber shifted. A path opened, leading back to the surface where Virea waited. He followed it, running fast, not from fear, but from hope. Each step echoed like a drumbeat, leading him home. When he reached the main chamber, she was still there, weaker. Now her light barely flickering, but she was smiling. "You did it," she said. "They heard you." "Not just them," Jack replied. "I heard me too." Vera drifted closer and touched his forehead with her hand made of light. "In your kind we saw only potential, but today we saw proof. You are more than data and machines. You are poetry." Jack's throat tightened, his hands trembled. "Stay," he said. "Please. I want to learn more." Vera shook her head slowly. "My purpose is ending, but yours is just beginning." She handed him the small orb again, now dim and pulsing like a sleeping star. "Give this to your world. Let it teach not with fear, but with wonder. Tell them the stars are not just maps for war, but books waiting to be read." Jack nodded. His chest, a storm of feelings he could not name. Virea began to fade, her light unraveling like threads in the wind, but her voice remained one last whisper. "You once said my legs were beautiful, but now you know. What is truly beautiful is someone who sees others with open eyes and open heart." Jack stood alone in the glowing room. The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of memory, full of meaning, full of peace. Outside the station, the enemy ships were gone, drifting away like forgotten nightmares. The space around Callisto was quiet again. But not the same. The message had been sent, the stars had been stirred, and Earth would soon receive its first true story from beyond. Not a warning, not a command, but a gift. And in the center of it all stood a human, still messy, still learning, still flawed, but beautiful. The stars above Earth had never looked brighter. People stood on rooftops and fields and mountaintops, staring into the sky as if waiting for something they could not name. Telescopes caught the shift first. A formation of golden symbols, slowly drifting past the moon like a message written in the handwriting of God's satellites, confirmed the signal was not random. It was alive. It was art, and it had come from mining station K47. The world asked questions, governments scrambled to translate, scientists whispered theories. But only one man knew the truth, Jack Carter. He stood in front of the Earth Assembly, wearing the same boots he had worn aboard the station, now stained with dust from a place no map had named. He held the orb in his hands, its light, gentle, like a heartbeat at rest. He did not speak from a script. He did not wear a suit. He just stood and told them a story not of war or warnings or conquest, but of a woman made of stars and a choice made in silence. He told them about beauty, about how it was not in power or perfection, but in the way. Someone looked at a stranger and saw something worth trusting. He told them that humanity had been noticed, not because of its strength, but because of its kindness. The room was silent when he finished, but it was not the silence of confusion. It was the silence that comes after truth. A silence full of meaning after the speech. Jack did not stay. He did not want interviews or medals or money. He returned to the stars. Back to a small ship retrofitted with parts from 1,000 worlds, he named it Virea and painted its hull with symbols only he understood. He took the orb with him and set a course for the edge of known space. Not to run, but to explore, to continue what she had started. To carry the story forward. As he drifted beyond Mars, he looked out the window at the black sea of stars, and he remembered her voice. Do you want to see? That question still echoed in him like a melody without end. He answered out loud, even though no one was there. Yes. I always want to see. And the stars answered not with words, but with light. A burst of golden shimmer unfolded ahead of him, forming a trail that pulsed gently like a path made just for him. The orb in his ship glowed warmer, as if approving. Jack leaned back in his seat, eyes fixed on the unknown. He did not know what he would find. New worlds, new species, maybe nothing, maybe everything. But that was not the point. The point was the question. The point was the journey. Back on Earth, people began to change, not overnight, not with fireworks, but slowly, gently, like dawn melting frost. Children looked up at the stars and smiled without knowing why. Artists painted galaxies with new colors. Musicians wrote songs with notes they could not explain. And every now and then, someone would look at another person and say something simple. I think you are beautiful. And mean it. Years passed. Legends gruesome, said Jack, found the source of the map and rewrote the fate of dying. Stars, some said he became part of the light itself. Some said he fell in love again with a being of thought and fire. But no one really knew, except that the signal never stopped. Every year at the same time, a wave of gold would pass through the solar system like a heartbeat, saying, I'm still here, still seeing, still wondering. And in that endless silence between stars, something had changed. Something had awakened, something had bloomed. Because of a compliment, because of a question, because of one man who chose to care. And the last message ever received from his ship was not coordinates or warnings. It was just one sentence carried on light. Do you want to see?